He introduced legislation to eliminate Woody Herman's $1.6 million tax debt. He is founder of the Jazz Forum as part of the Congressional Black Caucus Weekend each year in Washington, D.C. He introduced the legislation to name jazz as an American national treasure, which passed the House of Representatives, as I mentioned, on September 23rd and the Senate on December 4th. Will you please, no, I insist, will you welcome Congressman John Conyers, Jr. from Michigan.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Detroit. It may be cold on the outside, but it's cooking on the inside. Thanks to the National Association of Jazz Educators, all of the great artists that have traveled from all over the country, some still stalled in airports on the way in. We know that there are more coming. And this great, legendary group of creative artists in the Michigan and Detroit area that have made it so appropriate that you hold the conference here in 1988. Welcome to our city. We're delighted and overjoyed. I was talking to the mayor of Detroit, the Honorable Coleman Alexander Young, and I want you to know that he sends his warmest greetings. He is a jazz devotee too. We've had jazz discussions, not arguments, for many, many years, and we're all delighted to be sponsoring this great activity in our city. Now, it's a wonderful thing that the government, the federal government, the Congress and the Senate of the United States have decided after all of these years to say something about jazz. And many of you out here took the step of writing your congressman or writing, especially our senators. We got a little jammed in the Senate since we weren't over there to ride herd on them every day. And many of you, organizations were writing me from all over the country who were asking their members to send a letter to their senators, to their congressmen, to pass what I consider to be a historic statement about this great, valuable art form that we know and love. It's wonderful to know that finally the United States government has gone on record. Now, the important question that challenges us now is, where do we go from here? Will this become just a concurrent resolution that will be filed away with a lot of good sentiments that are passed into law, or are we going to do something about it? I say to the National Association of Jazz Educators, their friends, this is the resolution upon which we begin to develop a national, indeed international, appreciation of our music. That was the beginning step of passing this legislation, not the final step. The question now is, where do we go? What do we want our government, the National Endowment of Arts, the Council of Arts and the states and the cities to do? And I want to tell you, we have many, many members of Congress whom I had no idea were jazz supporters and enthusiasts that are now waiting for you to tell us what you want us to do. Now, in addition to that, I've always thought that the cultural aspect in our country has always been neglected. I've often thought of getting together a resolution that would transpose at least half of the weapons that we produce in this country into musical instruments. And if we had everybody that we would send a weapon to around the world, and I'm ashamed to tell you how much money we spend in that questionable endeavor, if we were to send an instrument or a record or some musicians and artists and creators of this great music that is loved all over the world, I think we would be doing much, much more sincerely to make a world of peace and justice and harmony than much of the way we already spend these funds. And so I want to spread this music not just because it's a favorite to me and that I grew up in this Detroit environment where there was a J.C. Hurd and a Tommy Flanagan and a Bird and Chambers and Alice Coltrane and so forth and so on. The names go on, legendary around our city. We're here to try to do more than just enjoy the music. And the one thing many artists told me is that, you know, it was the first time I ever wrote a congressman. And they wrote me back, and they realized that we're people too. And what we're doing is saying, musicians, please come out of your ivory tower and help us shape the environment of our nation, indeed the environment of the world. Because like you, I've gone to places around the country and have had almost cultural shock to hear what I thought was the music of the United States being played in Africa, and it was the African percussion that we had brought over here, and not something that I thought that had been created here and that we had exported. In Scandinavia, in the Caribbean, our music is loved. In the Soviet Union, we now, I met musicologists who had far more depth and training in how our artists created our music in America than many of us knew about of our own music. And now that the era of glasnost is upon us, we know that there are more and more cultural exchanges, and that jazz is foremost among them. And so this weekend, we're going to light up the skies in Detroit. We're going to warm up the atmosphere here. We're going to begin to make deeper understandings between us all. And please remember the black artist who is still sometimes the person that is left out, who is still trying to get in on an economic basis of earning a living at the music that he or she loves. Please, let's work to accomplish a new depth of understanding and cooperativeness that to me is the spirit of this music, a music so democratic that everybody frequently gets to be a soloist, that no one instrument dominates the other, that the leader can come from any one of the many instruments that participate in this great music of ours. And so I'm very, very pleased to be honored to join you here, to be able to bring a few remarks on behalf of the scores and scores of members of Congress who are now looking at jazz in a completely different light. And National Association of Jazz Educators, please continue the work that you've been doing across the years. I was with you in Philadelphia a number of years ago. You've grown, you've disseminated our music, you've evaluated the problems, and now you're here in Detroit, and I predict that this will be one of our most important conferences. My congratulations to you all, and thank you very much.